Hello and welcome back. We're here. It's a new month. There's been a new release of Intune, and in fact, there's been two since we made the last video. So we have a lot of things to cover up. But Matthias, there's someone else here today, right?
Yes, and it's not by accident. We want to welcome you, Peter.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Thank you for wanting to participate in these recordings, of course, and go through what's new in Intune with us. I just need to ask you, Peter, what happened to your device right before we hit the record button?
You might want to check endpoint analytics tomorrow.
Yeah,
But I had a device crash, so fingers crossed that it won't happen again.
fingers crossed for sure. So let's get into it before Peter's device is potentially going to crash again. And we need to start off with what's new in Intune 2403 so that we cover March as well. And the first thing is quite big, I think, right? There's a new offering, basically, new add-on to the Intune Suite license called Cloud PKI. What is that? Matthias?
Yeah, what is that? Cloud PKI is for it's a brand new offer from Intune Suite where you simply can buy the certificate solution instead of knowing anything about certificates and how to build a PKI infrastructure. So kind of a SaaS solution, and that's quite neat because I don't know how to tier these kind of things and never had the any loss to actually find out, because that's not interesting for me. I just want to bring that certificate to the device to be trusted to do something with infrastructure or Wi-Fi or whatever have we. So this is something that is really welcoming in my book. But I would ask Peter more. How does it look, and what does Cloud PKI offer us?
Yeah, thank you for that, Matthias. I love to have the easy job of just showing you guys around, because it's actually just like you said, it makes your life a lot easier and makes it really easy to get your certificate environment up and running. Like I actually have a couple environments running already at this moment. As you can see right here, I have actually two root CAs and two issuing CAs. One of them started by a little mistake of using the same common name. That won't deliver any certificates at all to your clients. And the main challenge is you can't delete those entries at this moment. So I need to create a ticket with Microsoft to make sure that they can be deleted. But once you actually use different common names, you can also use your issuing CA to be the one that actually delivers certificates to your clients. And the cool part is that it also provides you with a really cool overview of the certificates that are actually deployed, but also the status of those certificates. As you can see right here, that actually the active certificates, but also the revoked certificates of, for example, in this case, devices that have been wiped, and after that, they get a new certificate that is actually the active one. So that's a cool part of it, but that's really focused on the cloud-only scenario. But you can also, if you already have a really big on-prem PKI environment, for example, you can also create an issuing CA that is signed basically by your on-prem environment. So in this case, this one is specifically related to my on-prem environment. It's signed by it, and once that's achieved, you can also see right here, external root CA, you can just deploy certificates like any other Cloud PKI issuing server. As you can see right here, basically the same devices have received certificates, but also have certificates that have been revoked. So yeah, that's basically it. You can create a full PKI environment, and you can make it as big or small as you actually want to.
How long
That's
did
cool.
it take to actually set it up?
Yeah, good question.
Well, that's like literally a couple of minutes. It's just walking through a wizard to create your root CA, and after that, walking to through the next wizard to build your issuing CA. I think actually the most work is even in setting up the profiles for distributing the certificates.
That's impressive, I think.
Yeah.
But right now, initially in the first sort of release of this, it's mainly just for like client authentication scenarios, right? Like authenticating for Wi-Fi and those kind of things. I mean, it could perhaps be used for a little bit more EQUs and stuff, but right out the bat, the first thing that I'm understanding, or what I would like to use this for, were to replace the certificates we have on the devices used for Wi-Fi authentication. And that's absolutely doable. So it's really going to be interesting to see what happens in the future releases, what other sort of scenarios this opens up that eventually, hopefully, you can completely turn off your whole environment. And should I point out what I mentioned on, or not what I myself mentioned, but what I saw on Twitter. If you are using this in a trial mode, right, and setting up your like online root CA and issuing CAs, if you want to take that into a production sense, and then because you purchase the licenses afterwards for this, don't do that. You need to reinstall or reset up the whole infrastructure, the PKI part of it. Otherwise, your keys would simply just not be protected in the HSM offering that Microsoft has for this. So keep that in mind. That's a good gotcha, I think. And these days, also mentioned in the docs, I hope, because I don't think.
Yeah, they're really well documented, those pitfalls. Yeah.
Good stuff. So let's continue. There's also a few new things happening in another product of the suite, Endpoint Privilege Management. Matthias, something about support elevation, right?
Yeah, support approved is a new topic in the endpoint privilege management space. So many are familiar maybe with EPM already. And so what has come now is that prior to this release, we had to create rules for everything we wanted to elevate. So there was no kind of, I want to elevate this on the fly. So that required either you as an IT pro or the user to be able to either fetch certificate or hash and give that back to you, or you should just have a setting in there that would give you all this feedback. But the thing of that is that it took quite some time before the feedback came back to your reports. Now with the new support approved, we can finally give the end user some kind of on-the-fly elevation here. So what happens when we do this is that when this elevation client settings hit or target the device, is that the end user will be able to right-click a executable file and then ask for elevation. Then the elevation will come back into the portal, into the elevation requests, and then the IT pro will be able to approve it. Right now, I haven't seen any mail flow on anything here, so you would need to have an closer eye on this report. But once you approve it, it will go back to the client, and not immediately, but almost immediately, actually create a rule for that device, for that particular exe file. And then the end user will be able to run it. So it would be quite nice if you, by that support approval, also could create it as a specific setting that you could then reuse and ship to all the other users in same kind of role, or that needed the same kind of software. So you don't have to do support approved for every user, but could do it once, and then everyone else could kind of hang on to that kind of spent time already.
Agreed. Cool. Well, it's evolving. There's new stuff happening, so let's see what happens in the future for sure. on another topic, maybe not related, but there's also, in my opinion, something that has been, I've been waiting for it for so long. You know, these non-compliance email notifications with just that static, boring text in there that you couldn't really change too much or brand or anything like that. Now you can, which is cool. HTML, it's something from 25, I don't know, 35 years ago.
Never knew you would be happy about using HTML, right?
Yeah, I never thought that was going to be a thing. I just realized the other day that I'm as old as Windows, the operating system. I was born on the same year when it got released the first time. So whoever wants to figure out how old I am, you can go do that math.
Nice. So congratulations, Nikolai. You are officially old as, okay. Not gonna go into that chapter. No, but HTML, as you say, is now supported, and I think it's pretty great. We covered that you could put in some parameters in your messages in some earlier videos, but now the thing is that we can actually add in URLs here, and that kind of ups our game for compliance, because all of a sudden you could point into a internal SharePoint site where you put in mitigations around how to get your device into a compliant state again. So help your users to, do the work themselves. Maybe they can't if it's BitLocker, but maybe they can if, I don't know, you have some kind of compliance, custom compliance or something like that. But how does it look? Thing is, if you run the Intune console with a account that actually holds an email, you can use this send preview email. But if you are one customer with a separate account where you kind of have an admin account and the other account where you actually host your email, then this send preview is not going to help you very much. But in my case, it's working. And how does it look like if a device becomes non-compliant? Well, it's going to translate all the tags you saw in there. And then, of course, the instruction here. And what I just experienced is when you go to the online version of Outlook, it's not going to convert this into a link, actually. It's just looking text as this. But if you look at it in the real Outlook client, it's actually a link. So that's kind of funny how that is.
It's kind of the sort of thing of teaching your users not to click on links, or at least understand what they are potentially clicking on, right? Feels like one of those automatic settings that just disables the clicking part.
Yeah. But it gets better and better. And we use, or at least I use, some of these emails to actually see if devices out there becomes compliant fast enough, because we want to know if the first impression when the user onboards via Autopilot is that they either get blocked by conditional access because of a non-compliant device, or their device is actually compliant when they start working. So that's for that purpose, these emails are actually quite good. And you can add another separate, because it's only the one that has the device will get the email. You can then add a second group, and that could be IT pros like you, being the managers of the Intune environment, and then you would get a copy of that email. So that's just a tip how you could actually utilize this kind of feature in your environment.
Absolutely. Just clearing my throat there. Another big thing that when I read through these the updates is the enrollment configuration changes to Windows Hello for Business, which is pretty cool. Matthias, could you take it away and show us what that really means?
Yeah, absolutely. It just means that we recently got a new setting in the settings catalog. Let me rephrase. I would go to endpoint security and I would go to account protection, because I've seen in here that I have Windows Hello for Business. So let's go here. Windows Hello, next. And let's just enable it. Nope, that's block Windows Hello. Okay, then let's disable it and look for the, nope, it's not here. So the new setting that has come into the Intune environment is most definitely not in account protection. So that's not where we're gonna go. Okay, another place where we can configure the Hello setting is the device-wide, right? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Windows Hello, Windows Hello. Oh, there it is. I could configure it for all users. But again, no. This is definitely not here. Enable enhanced sign-in security. Well, there it is. Enhanced sign-in security will be enabled on systems with capable hardware. So that simply means that you can't use third-party cameras. So if you enable this, it's not able to kind of tamper the signal when you use Windows Hello. So this is a security setting. But what I really wanted to show is that when you want to configure these kind of settings, it's most likely the settings catalog, right, where Microsoft adds stuff. So that's where you're gonna do that, of course, not in all the other settings. And the tenant
There is
wide.
another way, right? Wasn't there an old profile like identity protection or something?
Yeah, identity protection profile.
Yeah, so that's the fourth place. Let's show that as well. If so that we cover all the grounds.
So if you weren't confused already, I can understand why you would be confused and why would it be possible to set it in all these kind of different ways. But this is the one that we recommend, at least, using the settings catalog, because that's the most recent updated policies within Intune. So use this one to enhance the sign-in security, and then you're good to go.
But we should also mention that there's a few sort of hardware and firmware and security related requirements for this, right? For instance,
Absolutely.
VBS needs to be turned on and enabled.
Yeah.
And those things. And then I don't recall, what is it, SEDVC or something? There's some security configuration that needs to be enabled and by the manufacturer. So read up on the documentation on this, that's for sure, so that you don't just go and turn it on, because it could have potential catastrophic effects for your users, for sure.
And the second thing is that when they are kind of used to use a camera that sits in front of your big screen and you're happy with the login experience and it does not work anymore, you're gonna get complaints.
Yeah, so if you want to raise your help desk call volume, enable this. Or do it in a controlled fashion. I don't know. It's up to you, of course. Sweet. Let's, where's your screen? Let's remove that one. There's also some, what is this? Rollback access control changes to enrollment settings for Windows Hello for Business.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. They have basically taken away some configuration changes and made it a little bit more privileged. Could you say that?
Yeah, that's absolutely what it is. And now you have to be Intune service admin to actually tamper with that setting. So it is on the tenant level, Windows Hello setting. If you're gonna enable that, if you look up here, it's assigned to all users. So it's a bit intrusive, you could say. So if you go and enable this one and you click save, well, guess what? Everything that has enrolled into your Intune environment is actually gonna, well, everything that supports Windows Hello for Business is going to prompt. So you might not want that if you have a lot of different kind of devices in there. You want to divide it with settings catalog, I think. So,
but it's also the fact so that, you know, not everyone should have access to configure these things.
Yes.
if you have set up your RBAC structure, for instance, so that it really covers your bases, that you can just not go in there, oh, let's disable this, right?
So that's good.
Yeah.
Security measures.
So quality updates. We all love updates, right? What about you, Peter? Have you patched your device?
Yeah, I always have issues after that. No, that's just kidding around. No, it's one of the most important moments of the month, but you don't notice it anymore as big as you used to, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, there's of course been a few instances over the past couple of years where there's been a few hiccups, but I mean, apart from that, it's been a really smooth ride. And with the expediting functionality of Intune, we can now not only expedite the security updates, we can also expedite the non-security updates, which is, what was it you said, Matthias? Was it the D releases, which is the sort of last release of each sort of month in terms of patches?
Yeah.
What is that really? Could you show us?
Yeah, so just for some information around what are the
A, B, C, D
letters here. A is for week 1, right? B for week 2. We know that there some people says that Patch Tuesday does not exist, but it really does. That's what a B patch is. It's coming in the second Tuesday in the month, and then we have C in the 3rd week and D in the 4th week and so forth. But really what we get here is if we go to Windows and we go to the quality updates for Windows 10 and later, we're going to utilize a feature called Windows Update for Business Deployment Service. And that, of course, requires a different license than just Intune. But really what we get is down here, regularly it was security patches. That would be B, and you could expedite that. Now we have the D in there, and now we can expedite and on security patch if we have any issues on Windows that is not particular security related, but some bug that needs to be fixed or some feature that could be nice to start testing before the next month of B release.
That's cool.
Yes, and it's really important to look at this exclamation mark. What it really says, while expediting software updates can help decrease the time to get compliance when necessary, it has a larger impact on end user productivity. That is, of course, of the restart days, where you are going to take over what was in your rings, and then it's going to enforce what you have in here. So don't use it every month. Use it where it belongs, if you have a high CV score or something like that.
Exactly. So it's essentially something that you would make use of in those scenarios where there's something extremely vulnerable that you'd want to expedite in your environment. And I think it's funny that you mentioned it, Matthias, because I have heard people saying that, well, this is a convenient way of just making me release the patches whenever I want and give them 1 or 2 days to restart. While you could do that, don't do that. It's not what it's intended for.
Also because of the reporting, Nikolai. Have you heard that? The reporting of the expedite is really good. And if you want good report, you could just utilize this feature.
That's a reason to use this for patching. Yeah, for the better reporting.
Maybe the Windows Update distribution report is also perhaps getting there, getting better and those things. So I wouldn't say report is something that's good. Perhaps either way. But Matthias, it's your favorite kind of topic. We need to talk about it.
I love it.
On Defender. You love these things.
Of course, and every time you say endpoint security, you also say Matthias. So we want to bring in Peter as well to talk about these topics.
It's a long-standing joke, Peter.
Yeah, I didn't know this subject was already taken.
No. But I can definitely give it to you. It's just a matter of me being a gentleman, and now it's your first time on air, so you get used to it, and then we're gonna share a bit more, of course. But the new thing here is, of course, the overview of everything MDE, the Defender for Endpoint, onboarding, and how to get the best overview of that. But if we go to the endpoint detect and response, it has got a overhaul on the design here. And we see the onboarding, we see policies created and so forth, but we also have this EDR onboarding status. And what's new about this is that you can deploy this pre-configured policy. So Microsoft made it so much easier to actually download whatever needs to be configured in Intune to onboard your device to MDE. And let's fire it up and see what happens. We can see two different policies here. One of them is, well, of course, deploying to Windows 10, Windows 11, and Windows Server. Windows Server, you want to think that's not managed by Intune. No, of course it's not. But that's how endpoint security works. It can deploy to MDE managed devices. Of course, you can't onboard something if it's not in Intune. You need some way to target it.
I still think this is so utterly confusing. I can't, wrap my head around this, because essentially it says Windows 10, Windows 11, and Windows Server. Then it says Windows 10, Windows 11, and Windows Server. Oh, this is config manager within parentheses. I'm like,
yeah,
but you either put in the MDE channel or MDM or the config manager, or whatever it's called these days, co-management or cloud attach, or these things, right? I mean, come on, make it easier.
You need some way to separate it, right? Because
something that's easier.
There are certainly some differences in here that and requirements, because if you want to use this one, you need to publish certain collections from Configuration Manager. I can definitely show you that. So if you click here, it's going to tell you that all desktop and server client collection must be enabled and synchronized in your tenant. So if I utilize this one, what it's going to do is that, and by the looks, look at these fine icons. Nikolai, I know you love icons. Is this sufficient?
I was really restraining myself, basically, or stopping myself from making a comment when Peter was sharing his screen previously. Because if you noticed, that the sort of green rounded icon, the checkbox next to the what's it called, like the sort of infrastructure view of your root CA or issuing CAs. And then when that was the sort of normal sized icon. Then when you went into the certificate, sort of, if it was rejected or enrolled, it had these like blown up double sized kind of icons, which was just completely out of scope.
It's the bigger brother.
What?
The bigger brother. You have the little brother, that's the little icons.
Big brother is watching us, right? Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it that they're bringing more, graphics into this, but, make up your decision and figure out a set of emojis to use with the same size, same sort of graphics.
You would expect there to be like a general bank with all icons that they can use.
Yeah.
And at some places they missed it.
They should just compile an intune.exe file or DLL file and then just reference that for every development effort that they have with icons. Embed every resource in there.
That's a good tip.
Sorry, out of scope or off track. Let's continue.
But the fun thing here is that, well, since I haven't this prerequisite in place, of course, I can't use this kind of template. So that was unfortunate. So I will use the other one. And look at this. It's really, really, really simple. Scope tag is default. It's going to assign to all devices. I can't change that. And that is for the simplicity's sake, right? It's also from connector, and then a lot of onboarding blob stars here. That's what it is. And then I click save, and it's going to create a policy for me. So if I go back here to my summary page, it's going to create my test. And then afterwards, I would be able to go in here and I would be able to edit my settings. So if I needed to kind of have, well, telemetry, don't use that, deprecate it. But sample sharing, for example, I would set that to all. I can now do that. Plus, I can add a new scope tag if you're using RBAC rules. And I would be able also here to add other kind of groups to my assignments. And yeah, simplicity over possibilities of configuration. That's always tough, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they basically took out 2 pages that you can configure if you want to do more details. That's basically
Yes.
the
Get up and running fast kind of idea.
So guys or gentlemen, we must discuss this. This is just a funny topic in my opinion. So I'm pretty sure it can't have gone unnoticed by anyone that there was a new security baseline for Windows that was updated for version 23H2, which is now using the settings catalog sort of and backend policy configuration framework. Just one tiny mistake was made. Pretty funny. Let's say I'm running a Windows device using localized language like Swedish. Well, I wouldn't read it, but I could, right? But there are other countries that really like to do that, or users of such countries. What would happen if I would have taken this new baseline and simply just applied it to one of those non-English localized devices? What do you think? Silence.
Wait.
we don't dare to say that it would break.
No, so there was a mistake when this was released, basically, and the mistake was that the values for a lot of these things, specifically to the local security policies configurations, were referencing the sort of English names, like administrators, as for the group, instead of the well-known SID or SID. Yeah, of course, if you apply those configurations to a non-English device, well, you would, of course, have issues. Fortunately, Microsoft really stepped up and corrected that mistake rapidly. So if you haven't created this baseline up until now, you should be safe to do so with the new values that has been updated. But Matthias, what is it really?
Yeah, I just want to highlight one thing. So do we just go ahead blindly and deploy stuff, or could we learn from this and actually, well, do ring management, something like that?
Is that an attempt of a Danish joke, or?
No, I'm saying, well, don't just assign stuff to all your devices. I mean, it's doomed. It's doomed.
I'm asking because it's been like 25 years since I moved from Denmark, so almost.
You've been all over the place, right?
Yeah, I've lived in Holland as well, Peter. So I've been places, in important places.
No, but really, the essence of this is that it's so easy to configure, it's so easy to assign, but please test it properly and don't do all devices at once. You're up for surprises, most definitely. So
yeah, of course, always test these things right before in a smaller scope or ring or branch or group, whatever you define it as. That's really important for sure. Next up, remote action pause the config. Oh, this sounds interesting. I haven't read about this actually.
No,
I've actually missed this one.
Which part? Config refresh in general, or the remote action?
Config refresh I have seen, but I haven't put that much effort into understanding really what it is, because it was basically withdrawn again, wasn't it? There was some issues with it. So I've been waiting for it to be sort of re-released. But maybe I missed that altogether.
Yeah, but Peter, one of your countrymen actually does a lot of debugging in Intune and Windows in general, right, Rudy?
Yep.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that we all do that, by the way, right?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
By default.
Yeah, you can't be Dutch if you don't do any troubleshooting,
Config
deep dives, whatever.
It's in your DNA, I would say.
But basically, the config refresh is a setting that can refresh most of your settings offline. So it does not need to go to Intune to kind of look at its assigned policies and then reintroduce them to the client if they are missing. The config refresh is kind of doing that for you, even that you are not online at the given point of time. But the new thing about this is when you want to do debugging and you want to kind of pause this because you want to maybe delete a couple of policies, and then config refresh would then reapply the setting, and you couldn't do the proper debugging of that. So right now you can actually pause this config refresh on the client, so it stops doing that in X amount of hours, and then you can put it back on when you're done. I have no use cases, but
the main use case is troubleshooting.
Yeah.
So the idea of config refresh is, of course, to make sure that the configuration that you applied will stay applicable and applied at any time, no matter if you're online or offline. But that's kind of challenging if you need to troubleshoot something and the configuration is reapplied every time when you try to make changes. So that could be a use case to, well, temporarily put it on pause and make sure that you can at least make some adjustments and see if those adjustments are fixing your issue.
Good point.
Good point, certainly, for sure. We clicked the same button with DS. I thought I was faster, but apparently not. No, it's time to discuss some updates to the assignment filters also. And Peter, I think you have this ready and loaded up in your environment.
Yes, I do. It's actually a small one if you read really good between the lines, because it's mainly about that you have the differentiation now between if you actually create a filter. So if you create a filter, you can now differentiate between managed apps, managed devices. So that's like one of the changes that came into play. And the other one is, well, basically like a couple of months ago, they introduced MEM for Windows. But one of the things that was missing was the ability to actually filter those policies. And as you can see right now, we can now also filter a MEM for Windows and make sure that we only apply those policies to, well, basically the filtered devices that we want to. So it's from that perspective a tiny update, but it is a much needed one. So that's basically the main point.
Yeah, more filters for everyone. I stumbled upon something the other day when we in our sort of evaluation of Intune for Mac OS, we wanted to make use of filters to sort of divide between, let's say, a development branch and production and whatever in between. Then we wanted to use the PKG application type, but it doesn't support it. Neither does the bash scripts either. So that was a little bit of a setback. So we needed to start using some groups as well for getting that out there. But hopefully that's going to come in an update really soon, I hope. And last but not least for 2403 is some new settings to the antivirus policy for Windows devices. Matthias, do you have it loaded?
I can certainly do that.
You're going to go there really quick.
Yeah.
I just learned that he is the endpoint security guy, so It should be a matter of seconds.
It is.
You should
Yes.
just have Copilot, Matthias.
Yeah, I could definitely do that.
Show me all the new
Copilot.
stuff in Intune, and then you can
Security
record
Copilot.
this for us.
Put in some stuff for me, Security Copilot. Yeah. No, the new stuff here is the archive. We can now configure the max depth, and as you can see, it goes really beyond. So I don't know if that covers your depth of archive when to scan, etc., but at least that will be sufficient for me. So going down 15 in depth should be enough for me. And then archive max size is also something you can configure, and to make sure that you know this is for kilobytes and not megabytes. So yeah, that could be a kind of, I don't know how big your archives are, but I think it would be sufficient with, what is the number? 42 million? No, 429 million.
That's
Maybe
just
even more.
that
Okay.
it's a lot.
That's a really big size. But
so
again,
what you're setting here right now, Matthias, it's basically telling me, so if I really want to execute my malware on your device, I should zip it up, put it in 51 folders, and then execute it. Or
yeah, but
and you
now I showed you my cards. You wouldn't see my policy. So
no, but now we've shown everyone how to do it, right? Put in 52.
Now I fixed you.
Exactly. That's cool. That's it for 2403. I said it correct this time. Let's have a look into the current month. At least for a couple of more days when recording this. And the first release there, or the first feature, is we can now do BIOS configurations for a certain set of OEMs so far, at least. I think this is pretty cool. I've been talking about or wanting or at least discussing this with OEMs for the past couple of years. It would make so much sense if they would actually integrate directly with the functionality of Intune and make use of those delivery channels that Intune has available, instead of building integrations with portals and scripts and synchronizing and those things. I mean, it works, don't get me wrong, but I want the native experience, right? So I'm excited about this. I think this is pretty cool for sure.
Yeah, but we definitely talked about this, Nikolai, prior. Also, we've talked about Fujitsu. Was it Asus, I think, and of course Microsoft's own Surface devices is actually able to do this natively. But if you absolutely must, well, we discussed that going to the settings catalog would be the way to actually configure stuff, but not in this one. You need to go to templates, go to BIOS configuration and other settings. And now I'm gonna call it out. I'm gonna say Dell. And you are going to see why. Because I have a drop down here, and you can see it, right? That right now we have Dell that is supported. So since it's a drop down and not a hard-coded path, I guess that other vendors maybe could buy into this kind of way of setting it up.
It gives hope.
And of course, you need to read more about how to set this up, because it's not just as is. You need Dell's CCTK tool to actually do the configuration. But there is a pretty neat guide how to do it, step by step by step. And I just want to point out one thing, and maybe Peter, you want to talk into this one. Retrieve the BIOS passwords. Important here. Make sure you back up all passwords outside of Intune. Well, I thought this exactly feature was that. Now we have it backed up in Intune. What do you say about that?
Thank you for that, Matthias. Yeah, to quote myself, I thought it was one of the worst important notices that we had in the documentations for a while. So you basically provide functionality to store a password, and then you tell the people to back up the password outside of the tool that you use to store the password. Yeah, beats me. But in the meantime, I found another important notice that's also good to know. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But yeah,
I just want to
challenging.
call it out. Sorry, Peter, but if the Intune subscription for your tenant ends, don't you have other problems then?
Sure. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, okay, obviously, it's like really safeguarding or like, hey, you know, this. I mean, if your Intune tenant is dead, or basically if you disable it, if you don't pay your licenses, whatever is essentially ending your Intune subscription, obviously you don't have access to it. Obviously you don't have those passwords anymore.
Definitely. So it's really focused on making sure that Microsoft has done their best to make sure that you're not stuck to Intune at the moment that you decide to do something else.
Also cover their legal grounds, right? Making sure that they
mainly to cover their legal ground.
Yeah, for sure. So keep that in mind. It's a good call out, Peter. I think even though it's a little bit fun, it's also important.
Definitely.
For sure.
Thank you for the serious note on this one, Nikolai.
Yeah, sometimes I can be serious as well. It's not common.
Very good.
For sure. On a serious note, for sure, GCC customers can now use remote help for Windows and Android devices. So that's good. Congratulations. We, of course, won't be able to show that, but we have shown remote help in the past. We'll leave it at that and move on to another big topic, I would say, perhaps, which is Copilot for Intune is available in a public preview. And I have tested it. And
share your experience.
Public preview still, obviously. I think everyone has not noticed, or it's kind of unnoticed for everyone, that Microsoft is right now pushing Copilot everywhere, which is, I mean, definitely it's the era of AI, generative AI, and whatever, all those things, and I can definitely see that there's a real potential here in the future, I would say, because I think what I've seen so far, it's a good starting ground. What I've been able to test and so forth, and initially from the preview that I participated in, the experience then wasn't as great as what is in the public preview right now. It's more sort of refined in a way where it actually does provide you with some additional benefits and added value. Initially, it was it could give you the false sort of pretense that it would solve everything for you, which is not the intent. This needs to be skilled up. Microsoft needs to invest in this feature. And this is the first type of iteration that we can get our hands on and test out. And I think it's very important that everyone participates here and provides feedback, what they would really want it to be able to do and help them with, because everyone have different sort of opinions of how something like Copilot can make our lives more efficient, right? I mean, I've had some scenarios in the past couple of months where I tried to use the Copilot feature, where I would definitely say this is an area where I would really have benefited from using such a functionality, which of course, you can just not pull it out of your hat and then it automatically helps you with all those things. But that's why I think it's important to provide that feedback with to Microsoft, where you really feel that there's a useful use case for it. Do we have it enabled in any of our tenants? I'm not sure if we could have shown it. Otherwise, we could talk a little bit about it. It's you will basically see a button if you go into each of the devices where you can summarize a device, and then it will give you a sort of guided experience with different types of prompts that you can list all the applications. You can get the primary user. You can get a summarization. You can compare policies between device A and device B. One thing that I really liked was that it gave me, when I was using it in the settings catalog, it gave me a really good sort of summarization of the actual settings explanation and description. That was way more easier to read than just looking at those information pop-ups that you hover above. And remember, right, it's the first release. It's not like they have developed it for 15 years and just had it hidden somewhere and then decided to release it. And now it can do solve all the problems in the world. But I think it's really exciting to see what's in store for this in the future. For sure. And everyone is just nodding. What do you think?
I was just listening to your monologue around Copilot. No, but I get your point, and I think it will improve a lot over the coming month, years, whatever. And where I would like to see the most power coming is from a data analytics perspective, so we can actually, create a huge data source and correlate data and pull the important pieces out of it. That would be, in my opinion, the most relevant use case. And please stay a little bit away from creating policies, etc.
Yeah, I think like we talked about earlier, I mean, creating a policy is maybe not the first thing that I would like an AI to do for me in these days, right? Maybe in the future, who knows? Where I just lean backwards in my chair and activate my Intune Copilot and speak out loud, and then it just do the work for me, right? But I don't think we're there yet. I think we're at a much more basic state at this point. But it's definitely interesting with the data analytics part. That's exactly one of those scenarios that I was referring to previously. So that's really interesting for sure. But enough about Copilot, I think. Let's move on a bit. And the next subject is support for Microsoft 365 remote application diagnostics.
Yes, that's like really. Well, I don't want to say it's an awesome one, because it's not that bright and shiny as you might think. But you probably know the troubleshooting pane already, right? And if we go there, we can just simply search on a user and
Peter,
see whatever is going on.
It's not shared.
Really?
No, I was waiting for it to click on it.
Oh, I thought I did. Did I unshare? Okay.
Maybe.
Let's go again. There we go. Right?
We got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes. Awesome. So basically, I'm already in. I selected my user, and you can get a really quick overview of whatever is going on within your environment. And now you can also check more details on a app protection level. And as you already can see, I checked a couple of apps in on my Android device, and a couple of them already have the complete diagnostic status. And because the thing you can do now is simply collect diagnostics. And once you do that, it will start collecting the diagnostics of that mobile device. But there are a couple of things that you need to keep in mind in that area. If you're using an Android device, you have to look at the fantastic note on the documentation page, which tells you that you will only be able to get the diagnostics from that device for the managed app once the user signed into the company portal app, which you might not want once your user is only using managed apps. So I thought that was a little bit of a contradiction from that perspective. But to be honest, once I did that, once I signed in, I got a prompt in my Outlook app that the IT admin wanted to retrieve the logs. After that, it would retrieve the logs, and as you can see, diagnostic status is complete. So we can actually go there and download the different diagnostics. And you can also see that it did it in two different parts with the incident IDs with it. So if we go one level back and we actually go to diagnostics, you'll see that we actually have a couple of log files with the incident IDs that I just showed that we can now actually download right here. There we go. So that basically gives you a little bit more control over also mobile devices. And besides just the logs from the company portal app, it also gives you the logs from the applied app configurations and app protection policies. A little bit like what you could also get when you do about Intune help on the Edge browser on a mobile device. So yeah, that's basically it. It gives you a really easy way to retrieve those log files remotely. The only challenge is that the user has to log into the company portal app, and I don't think that that's the best way to achieve that.
Maybe not, but I mean, it's way easier to tell them to log in there than to actually go and fetch this manually, right? Correct.
Definitely, because that's yeah, that has proven to be a really challenging job. Yeah.
Yep. So this is overall, it's a good improvement, but as always, there you can always fine tune it a little bit and
definitely
improve it with the next iteration for sure. Thank you. Perfect. Let's get to the one of the latter topics here, but still interesting in my opinion. And I sort of gave it away a little bit before, the Windows Update Distribution Report. What is it, Matthias? Could you show us?
Well, it's basically a report we have been missing for many years because
It's spot on.
It's a fairly basic report here, really. Thing is, we want to know how it is exactly going with our updates in every patch Tuesday cycle and all our rings, etc., etc. Thing is, our update rings are not getting that good insights on the patch management. So we were utilizing the M365 WFB report, and that had its flaws as well, because it was really hard to kind of work with your RBAC models and scope tags, etc., because it was in the Azure portal and not in your Intune portal. So this one is built in now. Now we can finally look into our environment and use your scope tags and then generate it. Once you have generated the information, you can go and click what kind of update you're interested in. Of course, I'm interested in the latest version of the security patch of April month, and then see how is it exactly going on here. And what I can see is that one of my 4 devices is actually updated. I can't be happy with that, but before I wouldn't even know really about this. I mean, AutoPatch, it's a whole other game. They have a lot of reporting and insights, but the native quality update in Intune, that was almost impossible. So this is very, very welcome. And now I can certainly see my devices lagging the latest update.
Cool. Yeah, this is such a great contribution in terms of reporting and understanding your patch compliance. It was definitely a pain. We spent a lot of time developing our own sort of custom together with a good partner to even understand how were we doing. Were we meeting our targets? Were we not meeting them? What could we do to improve it? So forth and so forth. So yeah, certainly check this out. It's really good. There are a few caveats, in my opinion. There are some improvement areas, of course, but I'm not going to call them all out here. We are
work in progress.
lack of time.
It's indeed a really good starting point, and
Absolutely, for sure.
yeah, it also makes you familiar with the alphabet again.
Yeah. That's a funny one. Let's cover the last items here on the list for today. Some firewall changes coming up. What's that, Matthias?
Yeah, so firewalls, we're all familiar with the rules in there, and yeah, again, we have a lot of categories and stuff we can actually set, but the rules in here is that before, when we applied rules to our systems, I could have 2 rules, or I could have 100 rules. It supports up to 150, I believe, in one of these firewall settings catalogs, and if one then failed down the line, that could be my second here, it would then still have the first one applied. So if the order was, I'm going to apply this one and then this one, and the second one failed, my first one will still apply, and the policy would say, hey, I failed, something went wrong. Now they've changed this behavior. So if my second or my hundreds of policy failed, it's actually rolling back. So it's not delivering a half-baked policy with some entries in your firewall. Is that good or bad? I think looking at a perspective from my packaging background, where I love the case that MSIs, when they install on a device, it's going to leave the device as is if it failed somewhere in the process. That's kind of the same I see the firewall doing here. So I'm a big fan. What about you, Nikolai?
I know you were going to say that. I mean, obviously, this is not my main area. I'm not the expert in EDR or anything like that, but I would, or at least not firewalls, maybe I should say that, but I would like to have it more kind of how the settings catalog work, right? I mean, if you have all of these different rules defined and something fails, well, then I want to know that that particular stuff failed, but I still want the other functioning rules to be applied. I think that sort of makes it more keen on what I'm expecting to happen on that device, instead of just, oh, something broke, complete revert. But then again, I mean, I definitely understand what you're saying. It's good that it's not simply just applying something and that it just halts somewhere in the middle and doesn't fully complete sort of its intended task. So yeah, I'm not sure. It's the first time I've heard about it, so that was my initial thought. It just made more sense when I thought about it. Do you agree or disagree, Peter? What's your take?
I think it makes a lot of sense what you just said, especially about the failing of a policy and what that would eventually mean for the how it's been applied in total. It would be weird that it's not applied at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's something that we're going to talk about in 5 or 6 months, that they have changed the processing again and perhaps listen to us. Who knows? But before we end today, we have one really interesting, in my opinion, hopefully yours as well, last item to talk about. And that's let's say what it is, auto update available with Win32 apps and precedence. Let's try and explain that a little bit. So imagine that you have an application that you've made available for a set of users in your organization in the company portal. It's an available for enrolled devices kind of assignment type. Then you package a new version of that application and you want to make that available as well. But you have no way of knowing really with native functionality that, let's say, Matthias and Peter here have gone and installed that first version of that application on their devices. And usually with app packaging and lifecycle management and vulnerability management and those kind of things. You want to make sure that your application is updated where it's installed. So in previous, what you would have to do, or in the past, what you could do is that you could figure out which devices somehow by custom inventory or anything. You could then add those devices that had that application to a group, and then you could target a required assignment on your new version of the application to that group that you managed. That's a lot of management. That's a lot of tedious administrative work. And Microsoft have heard our feedback, I would say. So what this new feature really is about is to automatically update and install the new version of that application that you just packaged. So if I were to package that new version, I would enable this new functionality. On those devices where Matthias and Peter had installed that previous version of the application, it would automatically just be detected and updated. And updated means forcefully installed. And this basically looks like this. So let's say I have 7-zip 2301 here. It's my new version of an application that I packaged. I had 2201 packaged before I made available. So the first thing that I would do is I would go down to supersedence and configure that application that I want to supersede or automatically update, which I've defined here. And the next thing is then change your assignments. And in this column right here in the middle, you can see it says auto update. This is just a checkbox. And if you do this and save your assignments, as soon as your devices start to sign in, or if you go into the company portal and refreshes, eventually it takes a little bit of time. I think in the testing that I've seen, it's about one synchronization that needs to happen so that this configuration comes down to the device. But eventually, devices will start to automatically install the latest version of 7-zip. And I think this is really cool. Really, really cool. But it leaves one gap. You need to have supersedence. It relies on supersedence. So if you really want to cover your bases or cover your ground and make sure that you have a way of forcefully installing or upgrading all versions of 7-zip, you need to manage that in that sort of application that you select for supersedence. A little bit tricky, but can certainly be done, and it's way more easier to do this way than having to inventory applications and understanding how to put them in a group and keeping that up to date, because that's not the best approach in my opinion. It's what we had, it's what was possible in the past, but with this, it's definitely a step in the right direction, I think, which is cool, right?
Absolutely.
So let's end with that bombshell. What was it that they said in Top Gear or something?
On that note.
On that note, that's right. On that feature, perhaps. I don't know. No, but that's it. That's all we had for this month. And again, Peter, welcome to the team. Let's, if you're up for it, let's continue.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, guys.
Yeah, awesome.
Time flew by.
Yeah.
Time flew by. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Matthias, are you still with us, or did you fall asleep? You're here?
I'm here.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
See you.
Bye all.